The past few years have been quite catastrophic for many choirs and choruses. Perhaps your choir or chorus has been affected. Let's find out how groups are adapting. Now, this is a video you won't want to miss. With me today from Washington, D.C. is Catherine Dehoney, President of Chorus America. And if you appreciate what we're doing here on the channel, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Catherine, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's wonderful to have you here. Now, so for those who may not be aware, what is Chorus America?
So Chorus America is a service association. We are the advocacy, research, and leadership development organization for choruses across the United States, and we do have members in Canada. And we were founded about 45 years ago.
45 years ago. And what does Chorus America do at a very high level?
Chorus America basically serves our members with research, with all sorts of information that helps them run their choruses and advocate effectively for their choruses and communities. So we provide information about all sorts of things that typically nonprofit choruses are interested in. So fundraising and board governance and marketing and innovative programming and things like that. And we serve choruses of all types. We were founded for basically to serve the professional choral community, those that pay their singers. But we, over the years, have expanded and we serve children and youth choruses, large community choirs, symphonic choruses, special interest choirs like Alzheimer's choirs or social justice focused choruses. So, yeah, we serve them all.
And I think the focus on administration as well as music is a bit unique. There, for example, of course, there's the ACDA, there's the NAFME and other organizations in the United States, but most of them are mostly musically oriented. Would you say that's correct?
Yeah, I would say so, that we are complementary to ACDA and NAFME, and we basically, our work picks up after if you have been training to be a choral music director in your career, and all of a sudden you have now find yourself either starting or leading a community chorus or primarily a community chorus, I'd say, one that is functioning out there like a performing arts organization, a ballet or an orchestra or something like that. You're in that same sort of pool of local arts offerings. That's pretty much where we come in.
Well, after all, every choir, besides being a music-generating organization, is also a business. And I know one of my mentors in the small business world told me one time, there's only one thing that can actually end your business, and that is running out of money. So, you know, everything else can be dealt with, but certainly I feel like it's very important that the choral organizations of the world learn those business skills and know how to stay viable. So, very thankful for what you guys are doing in that respect. And to the audience, is your group a member of Chorus America? Just go ahead and write your group name and yes or no in the comments and join the conversation. So now Chorus America has a lot of data and statistics about how choirs and choruses are doing. What was the impact of the last 3 years?
Yeah, absolutely. So Chorus America has quite a bit of research that nobody else has. We do something called the Chorus Operations Survey every other year that is really an amazing resource for benchmarking a whole variety of different operational aspects of choruses and choir. So, for example, the price to sell a ticket, the cost to raise $1, the size of your boards, the number of performances, individual concerts versus the number of repeated concerts, things
Yes.
like that. And during COVID, we repeated this study, and what we found, probably the biggest impact is that choruses during the pandemic, luckily, many of them were able to take advantage of some of the emergency arts funding that was available. And so that's the good news. However, their earned revenues went way down, and now what we found in the last survey was that about 20% of their income comes from ticket sales and other earned revenue, and 80% is coming from contributions. I think that will shift back once emergency funding isn't so available.
Right.
Which is happening now.
Indeed.
It's going to rebalance one way or another.
Right.
Now, I have read that that large survey and data collection thing that you guys publish every couple of years, and I've read it many times. But what would be a more normal ratio between contributions and ticket sales for your constituent groups?
You know, in the performing arts, it's been changing. Back in the old days, when dinosaurs were roaming the earth, it was about 40 earned, 60 contributed, or that would shift. Then it's been pretty solidly around 30% earned, 70% contributed, maybe something in there, 30 to 40% earned. But that's not the case now. And of course, America's in the same boat. We also, right now, our contributed revenues are much higher, thank goodness.
Right.
But that will also have to, I'm sure it'll balance out.
Right.
No, there's a lot of business models that work, and the community choirs, for example, they make more of their money from memberships than from ticket sales, I think, most of the time. But the groups who are dues, yeah, membership dues, that kind of thing, if it's a membership-oriented group. But I think that Chorus America's constituent choirs skew towards the larger organizations, and they would tend to make more of their money, both from ticket sales and from contributions. And the ticket sales definitely took a big hit in the last few years. So what I'm wondering is, how have choruses and choirs changed the way they do business to regain that audience and to grow their audience again?
It's the question that is front and center throughout the performing arts. The orchestra, Chorus America is a member of something called the Performing Arts Alliance here in the United States, and it's the heads of service associations for orchestra, dance, opera, theater, and chamber music, and on and on. And all of them are in the same situation. How do we grow our audiences? It's shifting from how do we regain and rebuild to how do we grow, because there's sort of the wisdom out there is that the audiences that haven't come back are probably not going to come back.
Okay.
Gotten used to watching things online, or it's an age and a risk tolerance factor situation, or whatever, in terms of being with a big crowd of people. So what we're seeing, choruses are amazing. Let me just say that they are innovative. There's an entrepreneurial spirit among choral directors. They really are amazing entrepreneurs. They can take you. They're sort of like MacGyvers. I don't know if you remember that show.
I do.
I could fix anything using a Band-Aid and a paperclip. So what we're seeing is all sorts of interesting ideas for making concerts more engaging, immersive concert experiences that don't have to cost a ton of money, like the Van Gogh experience with all the bells and whistles, but also interesting partnerships that are authentic partnerships reaching into diverse communities and bringing in those voices into choral music and choral music performance in a way that really is much more front and center now than it's ever been, I think, in the history of our field.
Yeah, I'd say that historically speaking, the audience of choral groups has been within a certain demographic.
Yes, typically the membership of Chorus America has typically been choruses that are led by and are basically feature white choral singers, and a lot of emphasis on Western choral music. That had traditionally been our membership. And now what we're seeing is these choruses are also working hard to become more diverse. They're involving conductors with a variety of backgrounds, people of color, Black, Indigenous, Asian, Hispanic, Latinx, and repertoire from those communities as well.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, there's partnerships happening with community organizations to bring these audiences closer together and to bring this tradition more authentically in. And it's very exciting to see. It really, really is. But what we know is that the demographics of the United States are changing. I can't really speak to Canada. I know about our census.
Yeah.
But that if choruses don't adapt and don't become more inclusive and reach out to audiences that haven't been there before, or artists that have been marginalized for various reasons, socioeconomic, because of race, gender, whatever, that they're really going to be struggling in the future.
Right.
More. It has to happen. And that's one reason. It's good for business, but really the most important reason is that it's the right thing to do. And it's sort of the moral imperative now. Is that
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
to bring everyone in. Choral music is amazing and healing and sparks community, and it's time to make sure everybody's included.
I agree. Yeah, I remember when I, for many, many years, directed a large ensemble here in Vancouver, and before that I sang in the ensemble, and at the time, I remember it being that I wasn't really aware of the political views of anybody in the group, and I wasn't aware of any of the things that seem to be quite divisive today in our culture, much more so since, I don't know, the invention of the internet and the rise of social media. And I very much agree that that being inclusive is the right thing to do, as well as being really an imperative in terms of growth. And both Canada, I can say that both Canada and the US are probably the most immigration-friendly countries in the world, which is one of the reasons that our demographics are not shrinking like most of Europe, most of Asia, right? Is that we welcome people from other cultures and other areas. And so, of course, the choral world should represent that.
One of the studies that Chorus America has done is our Chorus Impact Study. And I think this has been the organization's, one of our biggest contributions, I think, to the field, is that we have done research since 2000, I guess the first one came out about 2003, that looks at the civic and social impact of choral organizations and the characteristics of choral singers. And the most recent one that came out in 2019 pointed, we did some survey questions around tolerance, and that choral singers, compared to a general population, tend to be more tolerant, more embracing of diversity,
Mm-hmm.
More social, and and like the other studies that we've done before, it confirmed that they're just incredibly civic-minded as compared to the general population. They tend to vote at a higher rate, they're more philanthropic, they tend to volunteer, and when they do volunteer, they tend to lead. So choruses, to me, are part of the solution. If you have these powerhouses of engagement and social and civic power, and use them.
Yeah.
Help solve some of the ills facing our communities.
Yeah, it seems like a bit of a pipe dream, but I always felt like if more people were involved in group singing, then a lot of these cultural issues that seem to be on the forefront of many people's minds today would be greatly alleviated. Eh?
Probably not long. Chorus America had a major donor who I'd go have lunch with every year, and he would always say to me, "Catherine, why aren't you starting a chorus on Capitol Hill?" Republicans and the Democrats. He said it every year.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I would enjoy that. I think that'd be fun. No, it's true though, because the question when you're with somebody in a singing group isn't you have so much more in common. The question is more like, can you sing? Like, are you a good member of the group, as opposed to, are you part of my team? Right? It's yeah.
Right.
Maybe replacing the teams that we hear about with the team that is the singing group. That'd be a great thing for me. Let's ask the audience a question too. How is your group adapting to the new situation in the world and creating more ticket sales, for example? Write it in the comments below so we can all see what you're doing. Okay. So besides that, besides the AIDE and Access, Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity, right? Everybody has that acronym in a different order, by the way, and I never know quite how to say it. ADEI. Okay, well, I'll remember to say it in that order when I'm talking to people from Chorus America. Besides that, what are people doing to adapt? You mentioned, for example, doing immersive experiences. What about online and hybrid events?
Yeah, there's courses. It's interesting. They are still digitizing concerts and doing making some of their concerts available either live streamed or for on demand later. The push is back to live concerts for all the reasons everybody talked about during COVID. What made COVID so hard for choruses and choral singers, that experience of creating together. Mm-hmm. And that really can't be duplicated any other way. But they are digitizing. They're looking at, saw a wonderful one, actually one of the best ones for me personally during the pandemic was something that I watched Morna's interview with you, Morna Edmondson, mm-hmm. and Electra's partnership that led to The Light of Hope Returning, which was a digital presentation and video with an artist drawing illustrations to the music in real time. And it was so moving. That was amazing, and I can't wait till I get to see it again. But the other things that I think are happening is when this focus on immersive experience, choruses have always been pretty close to immersive experiences already. Mm-hmm. So with a few sort of inexpensive tweaks, it can be more, and with adding a little more money, it can be even more. But if it's something, the idea of bringing the audience in so it becomes a much more visceral, participatory thing. It doesn't mean they have to sing along to your incredibly performed piece that you've been working on for months and months, but the idea that you have surrounded them, there's special lighting, there's visuals, there's some element where they really heightens the emotional connection to the piece. Mm-hmm. Anything that enhances, because otherwise, the temptation to stay home, you want them to understand that you can't replicate this at home. Right. That's just not quite the same. And so heightening the experience. And we've seen some wonderful things. What we heard about a chorus recently that did this sort of walking performances, like a tour. I'm sorry, you might hear sirens going by. I'm in downtown Washington, D.C., and sometimes the vice president's motorcade ends up this way.
I see. Okay.
But it's walking through parks, singing, doing some sort of a meditative concert where folks are, brought in by helping them calm their spirits before things begin. We've seen just amazing collaborations too recently with choruses maybe doing an interesting webinar that explains the repertoire beforehand in partnership with one of the artists, one of the composers, particularly if you're bringing in a composer where the work hasn't been as popular, and that unfortunately has, there are a lot of amazing pieces being written and by BIPOC, people of color. BIPOC, people of the global majority, is another term that I've seen out there.
Yes.
Using to have that person, that artist, have a conversation with the choral conductor or with someone else from your organization about the piece and the cultural context. Things like that to really make sure that your audience is being brought in.
Right.
So and choruses have been really good at that, and they're very resilient. We saw very few choruses fold during the pandemic. Very, very few. And they're just scrappy.
Yes.
Make things happen.
So is there a place you're aware of where all of these or some of these innovative ideas for immersive experiences and changing that up are being collected?
Yes, I think so. There's informally maybe, maybe formally. I'm not as familiar with that, but I know that Chorus America, we have an online community where it's I don't know, sort of an online town square, if you will, where folks can post questions or really good ideas, and others can respond, and that becomes a repository right there of some interesting things. And Chorus America does articles, we do blog posts, we do articles in The Voice highlighting some innovative work that comes to our attention. We really try to point to that across the choral field. And there are organizations out there that are collecting this as well. I think maybe Chorus Connections, my assumption is Choral Canada has a way to highlight good work like that and the potential organizations. So definitely the choral field can lead you to others.
No doubt. So what's happening in 2023 for Chorus America, and how can people find out about it?
All right. That's such a nice question. Thank you for asking. We are so excited because things are coming back. We had to put so many programs on hiatus because of the pandemic, and all that's in the past. Our annual conference will be in San Francisco at the Intercontinental, May 31st to June 2nd. And all that information is on our website, choiramerica.org. Look under conference. We are so excited because the San Francisco Bay Area has more choruses per capita probably than anywhere. I always think Washington, D.C. had a lot of choruses, but the Bay Area is packed, and lots of innovative work happening out there. So we'll be talking, a lot of our sessions will focus on how to approach audience development, audience engagement, to help rebuild in some cases, but mostly build audiences for this new future that we're in. I guess all future is new.
It's the definition of future, yes. Yeah.
For the future.
For the future.
One of the other things I'm very excited about is our choral orchestral conducting academy. Earlier we talked about that we don't do a lot having to do with the actual artistic practice, waving the stick and repertoire and that sort of thing. That's not as much our focus. However, an exception to that is we do master classes. In the olden days we did master classes, but this is now an academy, a week-long academy where or conductors who don't get an opportunity very often to work with strings and work with orchestras can apply and be part of this choral orchestral conducting academy and work on some big pieces in the repertoire, diverse pieces as well, being coached by expert faculty, and then the whole program ends with each conducting fellow conducting a full orchestra in front of an audience at the end of the program. So it's a wonderful thing that we haven't been able to do since 2019, and this will be at Cal State Fullerton. This is the week of July 4th. So it's the 4th to the 9th or something like that. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, I guess, of all our many programs that I could talk on and on about, but this one, we are launching a new program this summer, and it is the Choral Executive Leadership Academy. And the point of this program is to provide a way to provide a way for choral leaders of color to learn more about leadership and organizational development and nonprofit management, and work with a mentor to expand their networks with the goal of increasing the diversity of the management of our choruses in the field. Right now, the percentage, we don't have exact figures, but certainly anecdotally it's clear that the percentage of Black and Latinx and leaders of color in our field in the administration of choruses is very, very low. And this is a program where we're using sort of the best practice of an affinity space. It's really vying for people of color. And we will be, it's a month-long program this summer, and that leads to mentorship that would continue for the rest of the year. So that's we'll be launching applications for that I guess it's in January. So we're really excited about this. Some of our larger choral members have stepped up to help sponsor this program. And it's something that the field is asking for and really needs.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I'm so thankful for everything that you and Chorus America are doing and the effect that you're having on the world. And thank you also for being here on the show.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much, Tom. I really appreciate it. It's wonderful to meet another choral music lover and somebody who's supporting our field. Thank you.
And thank you for watching. If you haven't already, don't forget to like and subscribe this video so that other people can find it. And who would you like to see me interview? What topics are important to you? Why don't you let me know? My name is Tom Metzger, and I hope your day is full of singing.